welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is some advice if you are feeling overwhelmed studying medical billing and coding, or if you are preparing for your test and you're saying, this is so much, this is a lot, and I just don't know if I can do this, and maybe I'm getting discouraged by other people, and maybe I'm just thinking I'm not good enough, or I'm not ever gonna understand everything. This is just some advice to kind of help bring down those nerves. I've been there. Okay, I have done medical coding for the last 16 years. So I understand what it's like to be a medical coding student. I've taken 3 certification exams, all with AHEMA. I've taken the CCA, this is Certified Coding Associate. I had that for 13 years. Then I took the CCSP, the Certified Coding Specialist Physician-Based, and then I took the ultimate, the Mastery Medical Coding Certification, the CCS, the Certified Coding Specialist. So I understand what it's like to study. I understand what it's like to really put yourself into this, and I understand what it's like when other people doubt you. I have been underestimated many times, and it's just something that I deal with, and there's many reasons why people think what they think of me, and that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions. But for me, the only thing that I focus on is what I want as far as my goals and setting my goals and reaching my goals. No one will ever tell me that I can't do something. And I'm just that way. That's the way that my mother made me, is that no one could ever tell you you can't do something, because you can absolutely do whatever it is that you want to do. Okay. So I saw this post on LinkedIn and I said, this post really does, it's one of those ones that they just write everything, and it really said everything that I always say all the time to new medical coders and medical coding students, and even medical coders that are veterans out there. But I want to take the time to read this and show how it relates to our field. And this is just some of my advice. So here we go. All right. So the post says, if this, then that. That is the whole thing behind this. If you are pursuing a goal, then you avoid telling people. We live in a society that shares, and we share everything. You can go all on YouTube, you can go on Instagram, you can go on Facebook, you can go on any of these social media websites, and you will see people sharing their journeys. Sometimes journeys of going back to school, and sometimes you will see them just sharing the mundane things. All right. But I think that it's important that when you are pursuing something as life-changing as a new career, that you keep that close to the vest. Because again, if you look on social media and you see these people sharing these things, you will always see a little tiny component of a nasty group of people that are just going to try to discourage that person as much as possible, trying to make them feel smaller, trying to make them feel like they are not good enough. And really, that's their problem. And it could be just some bot, certainly, but that also feeds other people and encourages other people to say horrible things too as well. So sometimes you need to hold things close to the vest, because people will speak, especially about health information and medical coding, like they know and they don't know. I hear from so many people who say, well, I heard from a nurse that medical coding is going away. Really? Because people told me that when I very first started 16 years ago. And if I had listened, if I was so small-minded and listened and just went with the crowd and be like, oh, okay, my dream is over, I wouldn't be here. Okay, so what I always talk about on my channel is building yourself up so that you are strong. There's a lot of weakness out there because it's so easy to be like, okay, this person said this, and I can't do that. When really you have it in you to do a lot of really great things. So let's try to do these great things, but let's just keep it close to the vest. Don't let anybody else in on your plans or what you're doing, or that you're going to take this test, or that you're going to do this. I understand it's a little harder in your household, and that's fine. Okay, people in the household they're going to know, right? But your friends don't need to know. You don't need to be announcing this at your workplace. You don't need to be announcing this to your church group. You don't need to be announcing this to the PTA or anybody else that you're hanging out with. You don't need to be doing all that. You need to be focusing on your goal. and you need to be moving in silence. And even if that means that, you have to spend a little bit less time with your friends, it's an investment that is going to pay dividends in the future, okay, for just this little span of time. Because really, it's not a lot of time that you spend to learn in the beginning to get that foundation. You're going to be continuously learning, but the intensive time is right now. And unfortunately, that is a very small amount of time, right? 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months goes by in the blink of an eye. Most people think, oh my gosh, it's so long. It is not that long. Trust me, when you get in it, you will understand that 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months is a really good length of time to learn medical coding, to get that foundational knowledge, but it goes by lickety split. And there's a lot of people who say, Blue, I feel like I still don't know enough. You will learn with time, okay? So that is my advice, is to move in silence. This also says it releases a cheap dopamine and tricks your brain into thinking that you've already achieved your goal, lowering motivation. So you have to move in silence. And that is very true. You're not there yet. You're in school or you're studying for your exam. You don't have that certification yet. You don't have that career yet. So you've got to keep it close to the vest so that way you can protect that goal. Okay, protect your goals. All right, 2, if you are unhappy, then start with brain health. Okay, obviously I'm not a healthcare professional, but this does suggest some very good things. Listen to this. Sleep, hydrate, exercise, eat well, rebalance your dopamine with less screen time. Society labels many issues as really serious things, when in actuality, it is just that maybe we need to sleep more. Maybe we need to hydrate. Maybe we need to get outside and get a little bit of sun. Everything that you do, you should do to your capacity. Like if you can do more exercise, then obviously do more exercise. We, again, have a sedentary job as coders. So it's very important to get out and move around. And that's really important even when you're in that study time too, right? Is to get out and move around, because having just, those changes of environment and getting out, getting some fresh air, getting a little bit of movement is going to help you to feel a lot better. The thing I learned about hydration is, of course, we all know caffeine dehydrates us. And it's possible to be dehydrated and not even know. Well, Blue, I'm drinking all day long and, I don't understand what that means. Are you drinking water? That's the thing. And there's a lot of these supplements out there, but, good old-fashioned water never hurt anybody, all right? And so there's a formula that you can look up to see how many ounces that you need in a day to stay hydrated. But it's very important, and sometimes we don't think about that. Sometimes we don't think about how important it is to treat our bodies well and to treat ourselves right, because we are with ourselves 24/7 for all of our life. And so it is very important that we take care of ourselves and we get the proper rest. We get the proper breaks in between. Sometimes when people will tell me, well, Blue, I've been studying. I studied all day, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and now I have a headache. Well, I always say you earned that headache, because no one told you to go straight 8 hours or 10 hours trying to cram everything in. You can't do that. Your brain doesn't work that way. And it's better when you take those breaks and you get that time in between to reset and recover, because then your brain is more likely to start absorbing more information. So I always say to study a minimum of 30 minutes, a maximum of 1 hour, and then you take a break. After 30 minutes or after 1 hour, you take a break. Whether it's a 5-minute break or a 15-minute break or even a half an hour break, that's still time for your brain to say, okay, we remember what we did here. Okay, now we're going to be able to recall this, okay? Something that a lot of people don't do as adults, right? Because we think about how we used to study when we were kids in school. Well, kids in school don't have a mortgage. They don't have a car payment. Some might, but for the most part, they don't have a car payment. They may not have a vehicle in their name, but they may have a car payment if their parents are making them pay for their own car. But they don't have all of the worries like adults do. right? Where we have mortgages, car payments, bills, and other responsibilities that weigh on ourselves. So that's the thing. You have to make sure that you take the time to study, repeat things, right? The key to adult education is repetition, right? A brilliant doctor once said this to me, but it's true. The key to adult education is repetition. And that's why I say if you're taking part in my 2024 Medical Coder Challenge, which is to read the 2025 ICD-10-CM official coding guidelines for coding and reporting 4 times in the month of October, because this is our coding new year. That's going to not get you to memorize the guidelines, but it will get you that, okay, you're going to be able to recall a lot easier if there's something about sequencing, if there's something about the diagnosis, or if there's something about the way that you're supposed to pick this up, if it's a history, or if it's this, or if it's that. There's a lot of really great things going on in the guidelines, and I will be one of my Patreons. I do have a Patreon channel. Patreon is a lot like YouTube, except for, you know, you pay to support the creator, which would be me. The minimum pledge is $10 per month, but it gets you access to all of the worksheets that I have posted in the almost 6 years I've had that. 5 years, 6 years, something like that I've had Patreon. And there's a lot on there. And so in these, on Patreon, one of my patrons suggested that I do like a quiz for the ICD-10-CM guidelines. So I'm putting that together, right? And I will be leaving that exclusively for my Patreons so that they can get that practice in and they can start looking at the guidelines, working with the guidelines, filling out these quizzes and things like that. So I think that's a fantastic idea. And like I said, I'm going to do that. But that's just one of those things to kind of change it up and to kind of like, okay, you know, we could start tying things to the guidelines, because a lot of people neglect those guidelines, and you can't neglect the guidelines, guys. You can't. That's how you know how to properly code. I'm just saying. The next one is, if you experience a beautiful life moment, then write it down. Now, in this instance, and if you're studying or you're getting into health information and things like that, or medical coding, you know, if you pass your anatomy and physiology test, write it down. Hey, I passed today. I got, 95 or whatever your score was. If you're really happy about something, you don't have to announce it to everybody. Get a journal and write it down. And even if it seems like the most simplest thing ever, it's something that's important to you. You worked hard for it, and no one can take that away from you. Your knowledge, your skill that you're building right now, no one can take that. And that knowledge and skill goes into confidence. That's what it leads to, is more confidence. And the more confident you are, the more opportunities you're going to be able to get, because then you become stronger as a person and you don't feel so weakened. You don't feel so knocked down if somebody tells you something like maybe negative or tries to give you constructive feedback. There's a difference between being negative and having constructive feedback. Somebody that's being negative saying, oh, you can't do this because, you're not smart enough or whatever. That's obviously being negative. But constructive feedback is when somebody tells you, maybe you're saying, hey, Blue, I failed my test and I've done it 4 times. And my constructive feedback is, how much studying have you done? How much do you do? How much studying? How much hours do you put in before you get to that test? Well, I've been putting in 5 hours. I would tell you that that's not enough. 5 hours per week is not enough. It is not enough. You have to dedicate 20 hours per week. And even if you tell me, well, Blue, I'm doing 10 is not enough. 10 is not enough. When you are trying to pass the certification exam, because it takes so much knowledge, guys, that's why you have to put in that time. And see, that's constructive feedback. You need to put in more time. You need to increase your effort. That's constructive feedback. Because if you want to pass that test, that's what you have to do. Put a little bit more effort in. But some people are going to be offended by that because, oh, no, well, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. You can make a ton of excuses. You can have a bunch of things going on. But there's a lot of people that will write in and say, you know what, Blue, you're right. I was making excuses, and I thought that, having a full-time 40-hour week job and coming home and having a family, that exempted me from having to study more. But you know what? I know I need to buckle down. And they buckled down, and the result was that they passed their certification exam. Because they listened and because they understood finally what I was saying. If it is important to you, you will make the time to do it. Okay, so that's just what I would say about that. But write those moments down when you have those small victories, because sometimes it's just you that's celebrating those victories, and that's all right. That's all right. You have to remind yourself that you're doing good. And if you studied your 3.5 hours in one day, that's something to celebrate, because you do 3.5. You do this 5 days a week, right? And suddenly you got 17.5 hours. You got Saturday or Sunday to do 3.5 hours of study. And then you got your 20 hours. And then you celebrate it again, saying, I studied 20 hours. I made the time. I fit that time in. That's a beautiful moment. The next one is, if you find yourself regretting past decisions, then stop. You made the best choice at the time with the knowledge that you had. Be at peace with it. I see a lot of people get upset with themselves for picking this program or that program, or they shouldn't have went through this, or they should have done that. There's a lot of coulda, woulda, shouldas, right? But again, if you don't know what you don't know. And when you don't know what you don't know, you're going to make decisions based on what you do know. And sometimes it takes making some mistakes, and then you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? And maybe you come on YouTube and you find me, Medical Coding with Blue. And then here I am telling you all these things that a lot of these schools don't tell you all to do. And so then you're like, okay, well, let me try it this way. Okay. And then we change our approach, and then we get a different result. And that's what it's about. So whatever's in the past, let it go. Let it go. There's nothing that you can do about it now. That money is gone. That time is gone. The only thing that could steal your time now in the present is you still being stuck in the past. There's nothing you could do to change that. As much as we would all love to sometimes be able to go back, we can't. Move forward, people. Move forward. And that way you can reclaim your goal. You can reclaim your idea of what it is that you want to do. And you could start taking actual steps to making it happen instead of living in the past. I'm just saying. If you're stuck in a mental loop, then ask yourself, is this useful? Will I care about this in 1 year? And this goes to, if you're stuck in a mental loop, then ask yourself, will I care about this? Is this useful? If somebody tells you, maybe a family member or something says, oh, I don't know why you're pursuing that, medical coding is going away. Ask yourself, do they really know? Are they a coder? Because if they're not, then that's their opinion, and that takes the credibility away from what they're saying. Sometimes people that are closest to us tell us things that are not supportive because they don't understand, or maybe they're fearful that we are going to leave and they're going to be, set adrift because you're going to forget all about them. And that's actually not the case. A lot of times, if we had more support, and we would be able to pursue and do all of these things more comfortably because we have this great support system around us. And, the benefits of having somebody who is joyful when they go to work, or joyful in their career, or they can find that peace in themselves. That's a much more different person than the person who is living fearful, and the person who listens to everybody else and the crap that they say that is bad for them in their spirit, right? And they're just at who's ever mercy. You don't have to be at other people's mercy at what they think. You need to think for yourself, and you need to believe in yourself, and ask yourself, if somebody says something negative about getting into medical coding, is this person a coder? Okay, and sometimes maybe they are, but then look at that person. Everybody thinks differently. And sometimes if people are real burnt out, they may say something like that because maybe they didn't get into this field for the right reasons. And the right reasons would be that they want a career that they would be able to grow in. If you are not growing in health information and medical coding, and you are just in it because you saw the money and you were so greedy that you got into it because of that, well, then guess what? You're going to say things like that. So don't always believe everything, but at the same time, be careful who you're listening to. Okay? If you're listening to somebody who's not a coder, stop listening to them when they say negative things. If you're listening to somebody who is a coder who says something like that, then look at their situation, and it may not be that that's a person that you need to take advice from anyway. Okay? I'm just saying. All right? So that's it on that one. If you're comparing yourself to others, then stop. Hands down, stop it. That is such an unproductive way to do things. There's a lot of people that try to get into this industry, and then all of a sudden they see this person getting all this slew of credentials, and now they want to be like that person. You have no idea what that person is going through, and you have no idea how competent or incompetent that person is, especially when they're brand new. Because incompetent people can sometimes have a slew of credentials after their name too. And I say this as somebody who had one credential for 13 years, and it was the CCA, Certified Coding Associate, that everybody always likes to talk a story about. Okay. But guess what? I changed hearts and minds. And for a lot of people, they say, well, she's really knowledgeable. She knows a lot, even for a CCA. Exactly. Because I was proving a point. Okay. So don't ever compare yourself to somebody else. And if people will say, well, sometimes people will say, well, I have a family and I have kids, and this person doesn't have a family. They don't have kids. So they have all the time to study. That's not true either. Sometimes people who are by themselves and they're single, they have more things to deal with than somebody who has a family and who has, all these things. Because if you have a family, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, a good amount of the time, you have other people around to help you because you're in a village. A person who is by themselves has to depend on themselves, has to do things for themselves. So while it may look different as far as like the challenges and things that you go through, the person who is by themselves has themselves to lean on, has themselves to if they have something that they have to do, they have to be the one to do it. They can't rely on somebody else to support them, to help them, and to do all these things. So while you may think, well, it's easier for them, it's not always easy. Don't ever look at somebody else's situation and think that they have it easier, because you don't know what they're going through. And even if the person who is single looking at the person who says, well, they're in a village and it must be easier for them, you don't know what they're going through. Because sometimes even with couples, whether they're married or whether they're living together, sometimes it's just the one person that's doing everything, and their partner doesn't do much at all. So they may as well be by themselves because they're trying to do everything. So it really all depends. So don't ever look at somebody else and think that it must be easier for them. It must be easier for them. Well, they have all of this, support and help. And while it may be great, we still don't know all of the story. Do they have as much discipline as you? Do they have the forethought of saying, okay, well, I got to figure this stuff out. How am I going to figure this out? Right? So that's something that you guys got to think about. Don't ever compare yourselves to other people. Oh, well, such and such took the test and, I know they guessed their way. Why are you concerned about what somebody else is doing? Because even if they just luckily guess their way through that test, guess what's going to happen to them when they get on the outside and they're going to be out there applying for jobs? They have to take an assessment test again by these employers. And if they can't pass that assessment test, guess what happens? They get passed over because you didn't have the competence to get this job. But if you take the time and you focus on studying for yourself and doing what you got to do so that you understand, guess what's going to happen? When you get an assessment test, you're going to be able to understand what the heck is going on because you've been studying like you're supposed to instead of worrying about other people. I'm leaving that there. But they said here, trust me, they have their own issues that you would never want. Only compare yourself to your former self. And that is a beautiful thing. Compare yourself to your former self only. Okay? If they steal your energy, then run away from them fast. And if they're prone to conflict, then ditto. True. Because sometimes people will get themselves involved in drama because they're in the drama themselves. Rather than if you see that and you say, oh no, you start spotting those signs of people that are always with conflict, always dramatic, and there's always something going on with them. They never seem like they're figuring out their problems. They have problem after problem after problem. And sometimes it's relationship based, with their partner or whatever. And they like the drama. And then all of a sudden you get sucked into it. For me, whenever I get around people and I start to pick up energy, because that's what I do. I pick up energy. And when I pick up somebody is dramatic, when I pick up somebody is jealous, when I pick up somebody is constantly always in conflict or negative, or they have something that, they're always going to try to one up you, I limit my exposure to that person. And so for that reason, I have kept myself out of a lot of things. And especially when you get into the work environments as well, if there's people that you automatically get that energy from, you've got to get out of there, as far as like get away from that situation and maybe go to another room or something like that if you can. But to me, that's what I do, because I don't want to be around that energy. You can't change people unless that person wants to change, and they only can change themselves. You cannot change other people. And you may have a friend that's dramatic, and there's always something going on in their life, but that's something that, you need to let them sort that out. That's not for you to sort out. I'm just saying. And if you see leaves swaying in the breeze, then take a moment to be present. And that's very true, because sometimes we get into this hurry up society. I find myself doing this sometimes when I'm like, hurry up, because I got to do all these things. And I have to remind myself sometimes to consciously stop and look around and be present. I experienced this a couple weeks ago, and it was the most spectacular thing ever, was to be present and to slow down. And it does wonders for you. It does wonders for your energy. It does wonders for your outlook and, staying inspired and things like that. And it's really wonderful when you stop and you really look at what's around you. Even if it's just when you're driving to work and you see the sunrise. I'm in Texas, and I see some of the most beautiful sunrises. I've lived in very gorgeous places, and I will always say that there's something special about seeing a sunrise in Texas. I'm just saying. And then one more, because I'm going to run out of time here. If you are overwhelmed by mainstream media, then turn it off. You are allowed to not have your attention monetized. Now, I will say this. Yes, Medical Coding with Bleu is monetized. Of course, Patreon is also monetized, as far as like people pay me on Patreon. There's a lot of ways that our attention is monetized, and what we give our attention to supports that creator and things like that. You go on YouTube, you watch that channel, you experience a commercial. That creator is getting paid based on that. So whether you like the content or you love the content, it doesn't matter. Either way, that person's getting paid. Likes, dislikes, comments, shares, all of those things also contribute to the amount of money that creator gets. So the thing that you can do, if you need to unplug, if things are upsetting you, if you don't like a particular creator, don't watch that creator. It doesn't matter. You're not going to change that creator. There are some creators that, they get too much of it, and, they all of a sudden they just quit, because they just can't take it. There are some creators that will continue to persevere because those types of opinions from faceless social media, right? It's not going to affect them. they're going to continue to give their message and to help those and reach those that want to be reached, right? But sometimes it's okay to unplug, and it's okay to not watch a show that you don't like. It's okay to not pay attention to the things that would be upsetting to you. There are some things that I see on Instagram that, you know, they'll say the For You page, and I'll see some of them, and some of them will be content creators crying and upset because of their significant other, their partner. And talking about the drama. No. No, we're not dealing with that. You know, we're not dealing with that. And so that I will get rid of. I will see other things where, you know, it's too loud, you know what I mean, as far as like screeching and noises and things like, no, I don't do that either. So I limit what I'm exposed to on social media, and knowing that when I watch somebody and I support that content, I know that that supports that content creator, and I know that I'm doing something good for them. I always talk about I'm a Survivor Sanctuary, Longhorn Lester's, you know. So those are the channels that I watch on YouTube because they're farm animal shows. You know, Rick and his channel, Think Like a Horse. I love listening to Rick. Sometimes I will listen to him because he does lives and he'll be talking to the people, and it's hysterical. Now, I will tell you that Rick is a little more blunt than I am, but he's funny. He's hysterical, and I laugh at a lot of the things that he says. But that's just me in the humor that I have, you know. But when I watch, you know, Lester's channel, you know, it's funny because he talks about the animals, and, you know, he personalizes, you know, the animals and their personalities and things like that. And it's a lot of fun to watch, and that's how I relax, is by watching farm shows like that, you know. But that's me, and that's what I do. But if there's somebody that I don't want to see, well, you know, move on to the next. Don't recommend this channel because I don't like this content, you know, whatever. But yeah, you can totally take a break from social media, and I do recommend that. That's just my advice anyway. With that said, guys, I'm gonna wrap this one up. But thank you very much for joining me. Please don't get overwhelmed. Just take a break, okay? Get yourself some water, get outside, get some sun, and just take a break. All right. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.